Welcome back to the Dylan Radigan Show. I'm Cenk Uygur. More now on the leak of an incredible 92,000 secret military documents related to the Afghanistan war. And the group behind it, Wikileaks, promises they've only scratched the surface. Their founder, Julian Assange, insists the release of insider information or videos like this one from 2007 showing a U.S. Army helicopter opening fire on a group of men in Baghdad is about transparency, not about putting the lives of our soldiers at risk.
We have a harm minimization process. Our goal is just reform. Our method is transparency, but we do not put the method before the goal. We have a serious endeavor. We do things in policy. We do not do things in an ad hoc way.
But as we reported earlier, Pentagon officials say they're, quote, shocked by what is shaping up to be the biggest unauthorized release since the Pentagon Papers. And they claim it could take weeks to reveal the true damage to our national security. Now joining us from Washington, NBC News national investigative correspondent Michael Isikoff, and on Skype from Rio de Janeiro, Salon.com's Glenn Greenwald. Glenn, let me start with you. Why did they release this, the people that are leaking it, to Wikileaks, you think, rather than the mainstream media as they would have in the past?
I think there's several reasons. One is they seem probably to trust Wikileaks to make sure that the public gets the information. There's lots of examples where our largest newspapers, such as the New York Times, have sat on stories or withheld them because the government asked them to. The most famous example being that the New York Times learned that for a year until Bush was safely reelected. And I also think that there's an issue of greater security, that if you leak to the New York Times or other American newspapers, it's much easier for the government to harass those newspapers, to sue them, to issue subpoenas, whereas WikiLeaks is sort of transnational. Their servers are in countries that provide great protection for whistleblowers, and I think that sources probably assume, rightfully so, that there's greater security if they leak to something like WikiLeaks rather than to a traditional American corporation.
Michael, is that fair?
Yeah, clearly, look, WikiLeaks is out there sort of carving out this niche as being a place to go if you have classified documents. I should point out, I mean, in the intro you said that the Pentagon officials were shocked about such a large disclosure. It is worth pointing out that at least at this stage, as I'm reporting right now on MSNBC.com, the initial Pentagon assessment has not found any clear evidence that any of these documents endanger U.S. troops or have harmed U.S. security or compromise U.S. intelligence sources and methods. None are above the secret level classification. That's the lowest classification level there is in the U.S. national security system. And while the White House last night was talking about the potential, grave danger that this might do to U.S. national security, at least so far there isn't any evidence of that. What there is that evidence that the disclosure has brought to light some awkward issues that U.S. policymakers don't like to talk about in public, such as the evidence of that elements of the Pakistani intelligence service have collaborated with members of the Taliban, our enemies in Afghanistan. But as far as damage to national security at this point, we haven't seen it.
And let me just add, because I think that's the critical...
Hold on, Glenn. Let me ask you, actually. You can't have both ways, right? You can't say, hey, this leak is disastrous and terrible, and we're going to punish the people involved, and then turn around and say, well, there's been no harm done. So they have to choose here. Is it a good thing that they chose that no harm has been done? Will that encourage more media to look into this matter?
Well, they've also said that they're already doing what they've been doing since Barack Obama got inaugurated, which is initiating criminal investigations to find who the leaker is and to prosecute him. And I think that's really the important point is what Mike Isikoff just said is true, which is there's no evidence at all that any of this information jeopardizes national security. And then that leads to the question, well, why then is it classified? I mean, that was the same question stability, that could harm national security. No secrets were revealed. What it does is it shows the reality of what the United States government does in the name of its citizens when we go in and invade other countries and bomb them and kill their civilians. And what really seems to be going on here is the overclassification, the vast secrecy religion that governs what our government does, that everything gets classified so that citizens remain in the dark about what our government does. And while it's illegal to leak classified information, it's also illegal to improperly classify information in order to hide evidence of crimes or other wrongdoing. And I think that's really the issue here, is that our government operates behind this impenetrable wall of secrecy that's very undemocratic.
But, Michael, let's address Glenn's point there. I mean, on the one hand, of course, we want as much information as possible, especially you as a reporter. But on the other hand, is the government really going to say, oh, yeah, you know, it was a heat-seeking missile and we lied to you and said it wasn't? Of course, they're not going to reveal that. Are they going to say, woohoo, we killed Afghan citizens? I mean, some of this stuff they're, of course, going to hide, right? And, oh, by the way, we know that our political allies are working with our enemies in Afghanistan. So what should they hide? What shouldn't they hide?
Well, I think that for democracy to have an informed debate about what is emerging as one of the more contentious and sensitive issues, more information is better than less information. And in fact, we've already seen the initial comment, very interesting, from Senator John Kerry, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, while condemning the leak of classified information, he at the same time says the disclosures raise serious questions about U.S. policy in Afghanistan. Now, I think that's really where this, the direction the story is likely to go. The Obama administration is sort of in a difficult situation here. It has, as Glenn Greenwald pointed out, tried to make an issue of leaks of classified information. In fact, ironically, they have had far more prosecutions and investigations, leak investigations in this administration than we saw in the previous 8 years of the Bush administration. The Bush administration talked about decrying leaks. The Obama administration has actually tried to act on it. They prosecuted a whistleblower at the National Security Agency. They've got a number of other investigations going. They subpoenaed a reporter, James Risen, to go back before a grand jury to talk about an 8-year-old, 9-year-old leak. So they've tried to show they're very serious on this and tried to send a message to U.S. officials, sort of put fear into their minds about leaking classified information. And I think what this shows is perhaps they're not having the kind of effect that they would like to have had.
All right, now, I agree with both of you guys that more information is good, and we get to find out what's happening in the war because it's our soldiers' lives that are on the line. But, Glenn, if you're the government, you can't let people leak willy-nilly and make their own decisions. They got to go after these guys, don't they?
Well, I think if there's any evidence that what was leaked is actually jeopardizing to national security, then certainly there ought to be leaks. But what we see in history is that the government errs way more on the side of excessive secrecy than it does on the side of allowing too much disclosures. I mean, look at what happened with the Pentagon Papers, which is what everyone is comparing this to, including Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers. There was overwhelming evidence in the hands of the U.S. government that the Vietnam War was unwinnable, that we were losing in ways that we were claiming were winning, and there was a huge disparity between what the government was telling the American people about that war and the reality of that war. And we've seen that over and over and over again, that the government abuses its secrecy powers, not in order to protect national security, but to hide what it is that they don't want citizens to see. And there's good investigative reporters in the United States that have made some headway in exposing some of those secrets, but Wikileaks is really an organization that has taken huge strides in bringing some transparency, which democracy requires, and I think we ought to be all grateful for that.
All right, Glenn and Michael, thank you both for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next.
Thank you.